Let's take a look at Lab 7-2. If you didn't watch the video on Lab 7-1, you'll want to watch that because I show some tricks of packet tracer. But for now, you see this is not conversion. I'm going to hit this fast forward button down here to converge it. Looks like STP is running on these switches, which we would expect it to because we have some blocking ports here. It would be kind of fun to poke around and see which one of these is the root bridge, but that's outside of the scope of this lab. So what are we going to look at? Well, we're going to look at these items here. So on the switches, I'm going to do a show run. I'll look for the basic setup, the access ports, trunk ports, and the VLAN 99 IP address. So let's just take a look here at this, and I'm going to do a password like that. Oops. Let's try that again. There we go. I'm going to do a show run. Now here in the show run, I said I was going to look up the basic setup, the access ports. Let's do those. Basic setup. Here we go. We can see the basic setup here. The access ports. So these are trunk ports here, 1 through 5. And then here's our access ports. Looks like all the rest of them are access ports, at least the fast Ethernet ones. The gigs are shut down, so that's a good thing. We're going to look and see if we have the trunk ports, which we did, 1 through 5. The VLAN 99 IP address. Let's look at the bottom. Sure enough. And then, of course, here's the rest of our security. And everything that we're not using should be shut down. So that's our basic setup and some of the things we can find there. Next, we're going to do a show VTP status on the switches. By the way, I'll do this with all 3 switches. I'm not going to bother to do these right now on the video, but I'll show VTP status to see if I can find out the VTP mode and domain. So let's do show VTP status. VTP is VLAN trunking protocol, and it takes care of automatically propagating VLAN information across switches. So we have a mode here. This one is in client mode, and the domain name is Lab 5. And of course, one of these is going to be in server mode. The other 2 will be in client mode. Now, we're not going to get deeply into VTP. We just mainly want to understand this business up here, how we can use one router interface in order to route VLAN traffic between different VLANs by making a one dot something interface. So this is a 1.1, 1.2, 1.3, 1.4, and so on that interface. So in other words, virtual interfaces all off of one physical interface. So we found the VTP name and client. So this is a VTP domain that we're setting up in order to propagate our VLAN information. And again, I will look at that on all 3 routers, but I'm not going to right now. The other thing we need to look up, excuse me, I got the wrong one here, is the VTP password. So let's take a look at that. Show VTP password. And here's our VTP password. It's Cisco. That password has to match on all of the switches that are in our VTP domain. The next thing we want to look at here is we're going to do a show VLAN brief and make sure all the VLANs are created and named and that the switch ports are on them. So let's do a show VLAN brief. And I can see here that I've got 10, 20, 30, and 99. And I can see what ports are on each of those. So that's all in good shape there. And I'm going to do a show run on the router and check these interfaces up here. 1.1, 1.10, 1.20, and 1.30. These are virtual interfaces all on the F01 interface. And make sure that it's got all the addresses it's supposed to have. Show run, and I should see those IP addresses here on those interfaces, and here they are, 1.1, and here's the correct address, 1.10, and so on. The next thing then I'll do on there is check the .1q setup. Now .1q is the protocol by which the information is passing from across these trunks, and particularly the case of this switch to this router. This is also a trunk port. Now I don't have to worry about it when I'm going switch to switch. You notice we've set up switch to switch before, and we didn't have to worry about what type of encapsulation or what type of protocol is being used in order to route the VLAN tags from one switch to another. But the router doesn't have that set up. So on the router, we have to make sure that we set up what kind of encapsulation we want. So it's already .1q on the switches. We want to make sure it's .1q on the router as well, and we have to explicitly set that up on each interface. All right, once we've got that, then the next thing we'll do is make sure our pings are successful. So I'm going to grab that envelope there and click here and here, and the ping failed, but of course it always does the first time. So let's try that again. Successful. Let's try from 1 to 3. And failed the first time, but the second time it should be successful, which it was. Finally, let's do 2 to 3. Oops. And it was successful. Very good. So we've got that all set up, and these are all looking good, just like they are here.